How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? What's the real truth about Citizen Kane?
It'll probably turn out to be a very simple thing.
Hello, everybody. We hope you're doing well. I'm Parker.
And I'm Max.
And welcome to Better Than Citizen Kane, the highly subjective show where we look at a movie and ask the question, is it better than Citizen Kane?
Now, if you like Citizen Kane, that's fine, because we're not here to hate on it.
But when every movie ever made is a reasonable contender for the title of greatest film of all time, you have to wonder, better than Citizen Kane.
So everybody, get ready to sit down with your two best friends in the whole world to watch a movie that Max thinks is 4.5 and Parker thinks is 3.5. We haven't discussed what we don't like about it, really, but we're going to find out on today's episode of Better Than Citizen Kane.
Yeah, if you couldn't tell, this was very improv this morning. Usually Max has something so nice and neat written out, and it's lovely.
Yeah.
Didn't happen this time, and that's okay. That's okay. I don't care. I think you might, but I don't.
I care.
I think you do.
I'm gonna hold myself to this for months.
Jeez.
No, I'm also something else I'm gonna hold myself to is that I brought ParaNorman onto Better Than Citizen Kane, which only really hit me once the movie was over. That I went, why did I do this? Because this was like one of our big Halloween slots.
Sure.
And I went, this is a great time.
You were so enthusiastic about it.
I was, and I don't know what happened. I like this movie, though.
That's good. I would certainly hope so.
And it makes me cry every time.
Sure.
So.
Good.
All right.
Okay, so in that case, Max, why don't you tell us a bit of your history with this movie?
Sorry. You're going to have to repeat that. I just wanted to... Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So in that case, Max, why don't you tell us a little bit of your history of this movie?
Yeah, so I saw this movie in theaters with my family in 2012 when it came out. And we all got a big laugh out of it. And I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. My dad and I are big fans of the climax of this movie. We think it looks great. And that's basically it. And then I was like, I really like that.
Yeah.
And then as I continued to be a writer, I would find myself going back to like 2 or 3 very specific pieces from this score by John Brion, which I just think are really great. Norman's Walk, Resolution, both really, really good. And just I developed like an emotional connection to that. I would use that as writing because it's hard to write to music.
Sure. When
you're writing a book or a screenplay, I always want something that matches the vibe. I'm basically doing like temp tracks for my own writing, which is tricky and also time consuming. So I just shouldn't listen to music when I do it, but I do.
Sure.
Anyway, so yeah, just kind of developed this connection to that, and then like a few years ago, I rewatched this, and I don't know, something about the finale of this just hits me emotionally. And I don't know, just like how it's written, how it's animated, and just like how the two actors involved are like performing it. I just think it's a really good and emotional ending that I think hits harder emotionally wise, like relating to emotions, more so than like his other heavy hitter, which would be Coraline.
Sure.
I think this connects with me more emotionally than Coraline does. I don't think it's better necessarily, but I like it more because I do have an emotional connection to it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. That's kind of my history with it. And then I just in the last year I watched it again and I was like, wow, damn, 5 stars. And then I was like, yeah, it's a 5-star movie. And then I got like this really wonderful like 4K Blu-ray
steelbook. It's so nice.
I got for my birthday from my dad. And then I hadn't watched it until we watched it together. And that's it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. I love that.
You hadn't seen this before.
No.
This is the first movie that we've covered that I had seen and you hadn't.
Yeah.
And I'm worried there was a reason for that. Parker, talk about your experience with this movie.
I really don't have one. Like, it was just, it was one of those that I knew existed.
Sure.
I was aware of Leica. Didn't watch a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
I think as they were kind of coming into their own, I was more interested in other films, and my family didn't really watch a lot of these.
Sure.
We had a pretty disastrous watching of Coraline.
I was going to say your family wouldn't.
Yeah, my family, we had a family reunion on my mom's side every summer, and one of my aunts or uncles, somebody brought Coraline. It was like, oh, we should all watch this movie. It's this new animated movie. And it went well until it didn't. Already it was too scary for most of the young cousins.
Yeah.
And then we got to the theater scene, and
Yeah.
my parents like, we're turning this off.
Yeah.
We're done.
Sure.
And so because of that, I think they weren't in the mood to go seek out more from the studio,
Sure.
per se.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just never really got around to it. And then later on, it just
Have you seen any other? You've seen Coraline. You've
seen Coraline.
Have you seen Kubo?
I've seen Kubo.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You haven't seen The Missing Link?
No.
Okay.
I've not.
And you've seen Corpse Bride, which actually worked with...
Really?
Yeah, they worked with Leica for that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's before they were like a full
Sure.
studio with their own logo. And
Right, it's like their version of Nausicaa. Like,
yeah,
technically counts, but like, it's before
when
the
you watch
founding.
Corpse Bride, there's a credit at the start that's like with Leica or whatever.
Oh, I didn't know that. Very cool.
So
Yeah. Yeah, but that's been my experience, and then I knew that you liked this movie a lot, and
Yeah.
so what was that?
I don't know.
So I had faith. I was like, okay, I like Max's taste. Like, I think this will be a good movie, and it was.
I know it was, and I know you think it was.
I do think it was.
Parker and I have this thing where if one of us recommends the other movie that lands below 4 stars, we don't like hear the end of it as a joke. It's purely as a joke.
Yeah, it's just a bit
of like, I watched Brief Encounter and Matter of Life and Death, and I went, these are fine.
Mm-hmm.
And Parker's like, these have ripped my heart apart and built me a new one. And I'm like, yeah. And then I showed him like the 2019 David Copperfield and ParaNorman, and he went, and I was like, this tore my heart apart and built me a new one.
Sure.
Anyway,
it's a good bit.
It's a fun
good
bit.
But
I
remember we watched this week.
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I told you that I gave it 3.5 or you just saw it.
I saw it.
But I felt your energy just get completely shift for like 15 minutes, just like crestfallen, just like, well, it's not that good. Like, I don't know why I brought it. I was like, Max, it was a good movie. Like, I liked the movie. No, you hate no. I wasted your time.
That we didn't talk about it because we wanted to save it for the podcast.
Right.
So I've had a week to be like, what did Parker like about
what
it?
didn't you like about the movie?
Anyway, I mean, we talked about it a little bit. And the main thing I have about this movie, and I only really started to click for me when I was showing it to someone like you, where I'm like, this person's a master's in film. Where like, there's a very specific split in the movie of like, the first half is definitely just trying to get us somewhere.
Sure.
And it is very entertaining. I think it does a lot of fun things. I think there's a middle section that kind of slogs. I mean, there's funny jokes in it, but you're kind of like, where's this going?
Yeah.
And then you hit this middle point where the movie's like, this is what we're really about. And I'm like, I don't know, you could have gotten to that quicker maybe.
You could have maybe. Yeah.
But also it's a kid's movie.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I'll do a quick breakdown.
Yeah, please do.
I don't think this needs to be like an hour and a half long episode, so I'll do a quick summation of ParaNorman. So Norman Babcock is a young kid who can see ghosts, and his dad hates him for it because he doesn't get it. And his mom is kind of like, I don't know, like, your dad just is kind of afraid. And Norman's like, he shouldn't be afraid of me. And she's like, he's afraid for you because they live in a town that I can't remember the name of, that is all about witches. A long time ago, they had like a witch hunt happen.
Blythe Hollow.
There we go.
Yeah.
And they had like, there's this famous story that they've made their entire like economic output, and they bring tourists to the town because a long time ago there was a witch who was hanged, and she put a curse upon like 7 victims that they would, they would rise from the dead as like a curse.
Yeah.
So at school they're doing like a play. Norman is bullied a lot because he sees ghosts and people think he's lying for attention. He has a friend whose name is Neil. And he's, he's just a funny kid. Yeah. Who also gets bullied, and he's like, I'm used to it. I don't care. And Norman's very much like, well, leave me alone. I want to be alone. He's like, we can be alone together. Like, that's kind of a part of it. Norman has an older sister named Courtney, who's just kind of, tropey older sister.
Yeah, tropey teenage girl.
Is annoyed by her, her younger brother's teenage girl, has a phone, whatever. Yeah. Paints her nails, whatever. And then things go awry because Norman's uncle, played by John Goodman.
It's a really good performance.
It's a really good performance. He comes to him and he's like, it passes down on our side of the family of seeing ghosts. And he's like, and now you have to do what I've been doing because I'm dead now. you have to read from this book at the witch's grave so that she doesn't wake up and bring the dead to life. And
because it's like the anniversary of the hanging. Like once every year, this thing happens.
Someone in Norman's family on his mom's side has to go and like read a book so that she doesn't rise. And Norman's very like afraid of this, but he does it anyway because he learns about duty. He talks to his grandma's spirit in his house, and he's like, all right, this is my duty. I gotta go do this. So that's kind of like the catalyst for the movie, basically. Like,
it's kind of an inciting incident.
He goes up there. His bully Alvin shows up, and he's kind of involved in the book. He quickly discovers it's a fairy tale, and he's very confused by this, and it didn't work. And zombies start rising from their graves, which I think is a very fun little sequence. There's a giant storm that rolls in, which is the shape of the witch's face, and she's cackling, and it's very fun.
Yeah.
My entire summation of this will just continue to be like, it's fun. And it's so fun, isn't it?
It's a really fun, charming movie.
Parker.
Isn't it fun?
And I don't think you would dissuade that, because you've already said it's a fun movie.
I have said.
So,
I'm on the record. I'm on mic saying it's a fun movie.
So zombies rise from the dead. They're trying to get away. Norman's like, why didn't it work? And he's like, oh, the witch isn't part of that graveyard I was at. That was the grave of the 7 victims. There were only 7 graves. She was buried somewhere else. So he teams up with his sister, kind of reluctantly, with his sister, Neil, and Neil's older brother. I can't remember the name of all of a sudden.
It's not Keith, is it?
No, it's in your Letterboxd review though.
It is. Yeah, let me see.
But you can just check IMDb, I reckon.
Yeah,
anyway, so they all hop in the older brother's van.
Mitch.
There we go. They all hop in Mitch's van. Zombies follow. It's kind of this chunk of the movie.
Yeah.
They learn they need to go to the library, or like the city hall. So they go to City Hall.
Yeah, they go
looking through records, trying to find the record of where the witch is buried, so they can read from this book. Everyone gets really annoyed at Norman because they're like, just give up. So they give up, and Norman stays. Meanwhile, the townsfolk have discovered the zombies, and it's a fun twist because you think the zombies are going to start eating people, but really, all the normal people start trying to kill the zombies, and it's just. Wow, society,
We live in a society.
Wow, we just, we're all so quick to hate, things we don't understand. It's almost like that's the theme of the movie. And you're so afraid that you try to kill something you don't understand.
Whoa.
So, I know. So, so that's going on. Norman climbs the tower of City Hall to try and read the book to the witch cloud. Meanwhile, everyone's, again, like, mobbing outside of City Hall, trying to burn it down because they think the zombies are in there. And maybe they are. Norman gets struck by lightning, and this is where the shift happens. Up to this point, it's been very like silly, funny, good, some good gags.
Sure.
I think that the performances are all pretty solid from the voice actors.
So.
I think everyone's kind of doing a really great job, especially Cody Smith-McAfee. I think is really good as Norman. And because with like a kid voice actor, it could be like, are you trying?
Yeah.
But it just feels very natural.
I think so.
Anyways, everyone's been doing very well. It's been kind of silly, kind of funny. They've got like John Brion's doing his best like zombie bass line from the 80s for this part of the score. And then at this point, Norman's been seeing these flashbacks as he receives a sign that the dead are coming.
It's really cool, like the burning paper.
There's like a burning paper effect that they use when he's entering a flashback. So this is when he fully enters this flashback, and he sees that the witch was a young girl named Agatha Prendergast. And who was hanged for being a witch. And she claims in the flashback, she's like, I was only playing. And the judge is like, with fire. It's really good. So Norman then has now discovered that the witch was just a little girl, like the same age as him, like 11. He comes to, and the zombies are now in City Hall, and he's like, why'd you do that? You're terrible. And they're like, we know. He's like, what? And basically we learn that the zombies hate this. They don't want to be alive, obviously. It's a curse that was put upon them. And they're like, we were wrong. We executed a young girl, and we were wrong. We thought we were right, but we were wrong.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's the theme of the movie.
Whoa!
It's being afraid of something you don't understand, so you kill it, and that's the wrong thing to do. So I think there's a lot of people in today's world that they should learn something from this. So yeah, Norman's kind of upset, and then they're like, no, we want you to do this. So they all head out, and they all take hands, and like then the rest of the gang, like his sister and Neil and Mitch and Alvin, they all take hands with him too, and he's like, the zombies aren't here to kill you. They want to set this right. Look what the witch has done. She made you all into what, these people once were. She just wants to do that, make you evil. So they're all like all right, so they're not going to kill us. So at this point, Norman's parents are driving him and his sister and the zombie up to where the witch's grave is, because the zombie knows where it is. Norman goes in. A bunch of trees go really jagged, which is very fun. Is it cool that I'm just cruising through this?
Yeah,
we can talk about like the
We'll talk about it.
So he goes in and he starts to confront the ghost of Agatha Prendergast, and it's, I think, really incredible stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of kind of criticism from stop motion purists of Laika, as they use a lot of CG kind of elements and basically like removing crease lines on of their puppet faces, clean up. ParaNorman has a lot of kind of compositing, I think, and also some CG effects.
Sure.
A lot of CG effects, but like I think a lot of it's also more compositing than I think it is.
Yeah.
Like I think the ghost of Agatha is like probably a puppet.
I would imagine
with like some some touch ups. Anyway, so he goes in and he's confronting her and basically, kind of calls her out. He's like, you're hurting people because they hurt you, but you don't understand, like, there's good people out there. And she's like, you're wrong. And basically, it's just him talking to her until he gets close enough, and she's kind of been worn down. She's like, no, like, that's not who I am. He's like, that is who you are now. Anyway, he, like, touches her, and they go into, like, her memory, and she's just normal. It's a memory she has. And this makes me cry.
Yeah.
That all the score and, like, the whole confrontation, because I fully believe it's two 11-year-old kids having this discussion about bad people and death. And I think it's really impactful for me. I just think it's it's good for kids. Like, it's not the most like poetic way of doing it, but I think it feels appropriate for two 11-year-olds to be talking about it in this way.
Right.
It's a horribly traumatic thing that happened to this young girl who was killed for no reason.
Yeah.
Mainly because she could talk to ghosts, probably. Because she is related to Norman. They look similar, and they both, I think Norman's uncle's name is Prendergast.
Yeah, I think it's like his mom's maiden name.
Yeah, it's his mom's maiden name. Good last name. Fun last name. So yeah, basically that's kind of this resolution of the movie is she's like, wow, my mom took me to this tree, and she used to, she would tell me stories. And Norman's like, you can go to sleep now. Like, you don't have to keep doing this. Yeah. And then she fades away. And she goes to the better place or whatever. And then from there, it's just kind of wrapping up. The town's normal again, sort of. Everyone still sucks, I think. But, Yeah, Norman has friends, and that's kind of it.
That's kind of it,
That's kind of the end of the movie. Oh, well, and also his dad accepts him.
Yeah, there's a nice little button with the dad.
Yeah, his dad comes into the room where Norman watches TV, and his grandma's ghost is there, and his dad talks to the grandma, and is like, is she here? And I think that's very nice. Yeah. It's a nice little wrap-up.
Yeah, good little olive branch from the dad.
And that's basically ParaNorman. I really breezed through it, but I don't think we need to, like, break it down.
Yeah, I don't know, like, it's kind of a movie in chunks anyway.
Yeah, it's like those kind of it's kind of 3 parts, but really just like 2 big ones.
Totally.
So yeah. What do you think worked about this movie?
Everything you talked about with the ending. Yeah. Like the latter half, I'm really in with, especially like that whole final climactic sequence is just. I talk about this a lot, but like, anytime I watch a stop motion movie, there is a moment, inevitably, there is some moment, some shot where I'm watching it, my brain sits there for a second, like, this is physically, like, they're doing this by hand. Yeah. Like, in Coraline, it's when the ground's falling out from underneath, and she's, like, jumping from piece to piece into the house, and, like, I turned to you in the theater, I was like, holy shit. Yeah. And then this was that whole confrontation in the woods. And, like, there's, like, one specific shot where, like, it's filmed like sideways, like he's like vertically hanging on, and then the camera like flips the other direction, and it's horizontal. Suddenly it's just really cool. Yeah. And just like every time I watch a stop motion film, it always just like boggles my mind. I'm like, how are they doing this? Yeah, like this is like watching a magic trick.
It's like you really can't process it most of the time. And if you do, then you stop having fun.
Exactly. Because I have to turn it off.
You're like this whole thing is like people moving like we've talked a lot about stop motion, but I think it is kind of like the pinnacle of what filmmaking can be.
It's pretty amazing.
Like, creating something from like entirely what you've created.
Yeah, it's all physical.
Like film can use locations and and just kind of be like, all right, we're gonna stand here and we're gonna do this, but it's like with stop motion, and then there's obviously like 2D animation, 3D animation is like you're drawing and
Right.
that sort of thing. But I don't know, stop motion's like you're taking physical things and bringing life out of them.
Absolutely.
In our world.
And it's physical things that are meticulously designed.
Yes.
Like you can't just go down, like you can't go take your camera outside like you can with live action.
Right.
Be like, well, I'm using nature as my backdrop.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like you want a mountain, you're making the mountain.
Yeah. Well, and when we went and saw Coraline's re-release in theaters this year, there was this little pre-show where it was the costume designer and like an archivist from Leica talking about sewing the fabric and how they had to like, because you're making clothes for tiny little dolls.
For tiny dolls.
And like there's so much there of just like the clothes and it goes so deep.
So all this to say, like the artistry of the movie definitely stood out to me.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the performances. Like I said, I shouted out John Goodman mostly just because it felt very un-John Goodman. Like he was doing a character in this, and like I like John Goodman a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of his voice acting performances are usually they hired him to be John Goodman.
Yeah.
Like Sully is
Yeah.
just that,
Yeah.
right? But this was not at all that kind of energy, and I was like, this is fun.
He's having a lot of fun.
He's having a lot of fun, and I thought that way across the board with everybody. Just seemed like they're having a good time. Like those, I really love. You and I talk a lot about like, love the idea of ghosts.
Yeah.
Like the concept of ghosts.
Yeah.
This has a lot of really good ghost stuff in
Yeah.
it that I really
and
enjoyed.
like the reason I picked this as like kind of a kickoff of our Halloween, like our October run, is because it has a witch and zombies.
Yeah.
Which is not something that is usually thrown together, but I think this does a really interesting thing with that. Of like, well, okay, ghosts exist. The witch is a ghost that has been like so tortured and traumatized that it has gained these further powers.
Yeah.
And she maybe had some more powers when she was alive.
Sure.
Maybe, but like there's that, and then the zombies are animated corpses, but then at the end, like when the curse is lifted, their skin peels away and they are ghosts, and then the ghosts fade away. Which I just think it's just a very cohesive. Like it doesn't feel like you're mashing things together.
Right.
It feels very natural.
Yeah, it is. It's a good progression
for something that is not usually put in such like a progressive state of like you're alive and then you're dead and then you're a zombie and then you're a ghost. Like that's just a very. I think it does something really. I think it does really well with juggling all of those.
I completely agree. I really love that aspect. Are there? You talked about it a little bit in your wrap up, but like, are there any other pieces about this that you really love?
I don't know. I mean, it's just some good gags in it.
Yeah, some good laughs.
Some good laughs to be had. Yeah, I don't know. That's about it. I don't know. I mean, I really just like the ghost element of it.
Yeah.
The one thing that when I saw this in theaters at age 12, because also I saw this when I was 12, when I was like Norman's age.
Yeah.
So this was eye-opening to me. And one of my favorite shots in this, it's so simple, but I just think it's a really nice thing, is when Norman's walking to school and he's like talking, you see him talking to all these ghosts, but you don't see the ghosts. And someone like walks past him and like he gets kind of like shy and someone gives him a look.
Yeah, so like he's
walking. Petting the ghost of a raccoon. And then there's just this really nice shot that I really like. And again, in stop motion, you're like, that's kind of wild. Of like, he's walking and the camera like swings around him and goes right up close and past his eyes, like extreme close up past his eyes, and then moves back again. And now we see all the ghosts he's talking to. I just think it's a very nice.
I do like that shot.
It's a simple idea, but it's just well executed.
It is well executed.
And I just think it's really nice. And again, I love John Brion's score for that. Norman's Walk. Everyone go listen to Norman's Walk.
Go listen to Norman's Walk. It's good.
So what doesn't work for you?
I think you talked about it a little bit in your wrap up. Like, I think there's just a lot of build up and exposition in the first half of this movie. Like, once you get to the meat of it, once things start happening, it's a ton of fun and it just kind of moves. But it's a lot of that, like a lot more than other movies, I felt like. Of just like a solid like 40-50 minutes of just, okay, this is the everyday life. He feels lonely. He feels isolated. His uncle's weird. His uncle's ghost is asking him to do this thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like it just kind of plods along a little bit in that way. And then I like the shift. I like the shift after he gets struck by lightning quite a bit. It does feel a little tonally dissonant because the first half is just sort of like, all right, this is a fun romp with some goofy, scary, like, woo, look at the zombies. And it's like, child murder. Yeah. It's like, whoa! Right. Okay.
Sure.
And that's something I think the movie struggles with a little bit, is that as much as I like those elements and there's so much meat there, because it is geared towards children, they kind of pull some punches. With like, it's like, well, we're sorry. And it's like, yeah, they're not that bad of people. Like, no, they're terrible people. Like, maybe I'm just my own personal feelings of like, these people do not deserve forgiveness of any kind. Maybe that's kind of coming into it a little bit, but it does feel, when it hits, it's horrifying. Yeah. Like that scene of the flashback and you realize that she's a child that they, took to a tree and hung. Yeah. It's awful. Yeah. And it's gut-wrenching and just like, it's so, so terrible. And it feels like the movie just kind of lets them off scot-free for it. It's like, yeah, they were bad people, but like, you shouldn't, just because somebody else is bad doesn't mean you should be bad too. It's like, I don't know, I think she kind of deserves to be a little upset about this.
That's fair.
But again, that kind of, it slowly but surely, that argument leans into the territory of what you and I talk about, of like being upset at the movie for what it isn't, rather than like grappling with what it is. But just something that kind of like caught my teeth a little bit.
I think it's fair to say that you have a hard time, like it's hard for it to go down smoothly when you're like, they killed a little girl. Yeah. Like, and you're like sitting here being like, they feel bad.
But it's like, bad.
Right, but they're zombies now, so of course they're gonna feel bad.
Right.
But also, I don't know, I think that's valid. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah, but like, and the thing is, they sort of deal with it a little bit of like the head ghost, like the judge or the minister of the town or whoever it is, played by Bernard Hill, which I was surprised. It was like, the King of Rohan is here? Oh my God. But he talks about how he's like, we were wrong. And like, we realized we were wrong. And like, it's sort of implied that before they died, they kind of had some remorse. Sure, yeah. It doesn't go into it very textually, but like you could make the argument.
Yeah, because it's not like they died right as she died.
Right.
It's not like they've spent their dead lives regretting it.
Right.
I'm sure
exactly.
they spent a long time, but again, the movie doesn't really have time to delve into that. And why would it?
And why would
that
it?
Wouldn't be fun for
kids. No, it wouldn't. For what the movie is trying to be, I think it's grappling with it well. It's just that real big tone shift from like goofy like slapstick comedy with the zombies to, oh yeah, we killed a child. Yeah, is kind of like a whoa, like a really like the handbrake gets pulled real hard.
Yeah, well, and then after the reveal, they still play with the gags and the bits. Like they're still kind of having fun.
Right.
But you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like this guy's in the back seat and they're doing a "Are We There Yet?" with the zombie that killed a young girl. I don't know.
It's kind of it's a little.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I understand that it's like hard to swallow.
But I think the movie makes up for a lot of that with just that full final sequence, because that carries the weight, that carries the gravitas in like such a great way.
I don't know.
Yeah, it gives her and her storyline the weight and respect that like it deserves to have.
Right.
I just would have liked to have seen a bit more of that sprinkled throughout.
Yeah. Rather than kind of all at the end being like heavy, hard, sad, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I still like those are fairly minor things in the grand scheme of things. I think the bigger issue I have is just what I talked about with like the pacing. Yeah. It's just sort of like takes a while to get going, which is in the same way I can pardon some of these things on the other side for like, well, it's geared to kids.
Yeah.
That one gets way kids deserve good pacing, and this doesn't have it in the first little bit for me.
Yeah. Well, and I also think like watching it this time, like once the whole group of kids is in the van together, I feel like we're just like, it's just taking so long.
Takes a minute.
Can you like get to City Hall and like can you move along? And I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to be very interested in like taking the time to go out of its way for like the jokey interpersonal play of like seeing Alvin flirt with the older sister
Yeah.
and like doing those bits and seeing
Yeah.
her pine after Mitch.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we didn't mention that one of the better payoffs of the movies, the whole time she's pining after
Yeah.
Mitch, who's this, you know,
Mitch is super buff.
he's super buff,
big.
this jock.
Yeah.
He just seems completely oblivious to her.
Yeah.
And for most of the time, you're thinking, well, that's just kind of his character type. He's just kind of the dumb, stupid
Yeah.
jock. And at the end, she makes some mention of like, oh, you should like come over and watch a movie or something. He's like, oh, that sounds great. Like my boyfriend would love to do that so
Yeah.
much. And I like the fact that it's not like it's played for laughs, but the joke isn't, haha, he's gay, let's laugh at him.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you poor
Yeah.
stupid teenage girl,
Yeah.
you're directing your energy the wrong way.
Yeah.
And I like that because
Yeah.
what, this is 2012?
Yeah.
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 Not pretty
Well, it's,
progressive
like,
take on
also,
that.
like one of like those earlier like canonically gay characters in a kids animated film.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
I mean, they did have to do it right at the end, but it's still cool.
Right. You got
it's
baby
great.
steps.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
2012.
2012.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. I mean, like, favorite... I don't know. I think my favorite gag in this is the guy at the vending machine who's, like, waiting for
really
his snack to come down.
The cross-cutting
The cross-cutting's really
funny.
good, and, like, how quickly they get there is... Yeah, that's just really good.
And then him coming back.
Him coming back for it. Yeah, the zombies are approaching, and he's, like, keeps looking and be like, oh, and, like, waiting for his snack to drop so he can run away. It's pretty fun.
That's good.
It's having a lot of fun with, like, parodies of, like, old B-movie horror.
Totally.
Like, it opens with, like, the your feature presentation, and then it's, like, this parody of old zombie movies, like,
Yeah.
kind of those, like, sexy zombie movies where, like, the camera cuts and it's, like, framed so, like, her butt's in the way, and then she's, like, screaming, and then she pushes a boom mic out of the way. I don't know, I think that's kind of fun.
I thought it was fun, too, that I didn't do very much research for this, but I did read that the animators had a really tough time with that opening little movie because, like, stop motion is so meticulous. Again, like, deliberately making choices and making choices to make it look like they're making mistakes and make it a
Yeah.
bad movie and bad shots
Yeah.
and, like, weird camera shake.
Yeah.
Like, that's hard. That's
Yeah.
hard to do in stop motion because everything is so pristine and perfect and, like...
Yeah, because usually it's like if you're making a stop-motion film, why would you actively try to make it
Right.
look bad?
And how do you make a mistake one frame at a time?
Yeah.
You know? I just thought that was
Yeah,
really funny. I was like, that's a very good
interesting.
point.
That's a very good point. Yeah, yeah. I think the stuff with Norman's grandma works really well.
I do like that.
That emotional aspect works.
It's Elaine Stritch, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of her final performances, if not her final.
I think it was maybe either her penultimate or her final performance.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a fun movie. And we both love the lightning ghost at the end.
The lightning ghost is so
Agatha's
cool.
kind of got this like yellow neon green, like lightning-y
Yeah.
aesthetic, and it's so fun.
It's
I think
so
it's
fun.
really really cool, and yeah, I love. I don't know. I really like this movie. I just think it's fun.
It's
a
fun.
It's a fun October watch.
It is a capital F fun movie.
It's in like for me, it's in the run of like if I like. There's just some really good stop motion or stop motion adjacent Halloween movies, and
Yeah.
it is like Coraline, ParaNorman, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and then I always try to squeeze in Monster House as well, even though it's not stop motion. But I also have a soft spot for Monster House.
See, out of that, I agree with that lineup entirely, but I swap out Monster House for like Corpse Bride.
Oh, Corpse
Like,
Bride's in
that's-
there too. You know what? 5.
5. Okay,
Five.
yeah, I can
There
get
we
behind
go.
that. I can get behind that.
Yeah. Are you a Nightmare Before Christmas at Halloween guy? If you were to watch it, I know we've both not seen it in years. But...
Yeah, I don't revisit it a lot. When
Yeah.
I do, I usually find myself more gravitating towards it during Halloween, just because like.
Because it's about Halloween
Yeah,
taking Christmas.
it's like it's more spooky than Christmas.
Once
to
you've
me.
passed Halloween, why would you watch it then? Because
Sure.
you're already going towards Christmas.
Was it you or somebody else that we know recently? We were talking about Nightmare, and they were talking about how like for their family and people they know, it is like firmly a Thanksgiving movie because
Yeah,
it's in the middle.
I can't remember who that was.
But you were there for that?
Yeah, I was,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
I can't remember who that was, but somebody we were talking to was talking about that. I thought that was
I think
interesting.
that makes sense.
Sure.
But I just think that November is for non-Halloween or Christmas-themed movies. It is for our lineup.
Yes. Yeah, November belongs to Fantastic Mr. Fox and When Harry Met Sally, among others.
And also throw in like a Little Women and a Knives Out.
Yep.
And that's November.
That's November.
And also we will be doing a November block too.
We will.
So the next 2 months. Actually, and then December's mostly Christmas. So
Yeah.
just be ready for holiday movies.
Holiday movies.
Through to the end.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Do you want to talk criteria?
Sure, why
I
not?
don't think it's gonna take anything. Maybe for me.
Look, we can talk about it.
All right.
We can talk about
yeah,
it.
criteria.
So, criteria.
Technical and historical relevance. Not at all.
Not at all. The only thing that I saw that I thought was mildly interesting was that I don't think this is the first, but it is one of the first like higher profile stop motion animated films to utilize 3D printing in a big way, rather than like handcrafting everything, which is another reason
again,
like people
is
push
why
back
people
on
kind
Leica.
of criticize Leica.
Yeah. But I did see that, and I think that's worth mentioning as like a step forward for like the stop motion medium.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can't really hold much water.
No, because especially like this gets blown out of the water by Coraline. All of Leica's movies.
Yeah.
They have a real Jordan Peele situation in their hands where they made their first movie and everyone loved that, and now every single movie after that will be held to that, you know, that standard, even if they are trying to do completely different things.
Yep.
Every single
no
time.
Coraline.
Yeah, well, it's no Coraline. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
And your point? Yeah, and?
Yeah, Missing Link and Coraline don't have a whole lot in common.
Are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And Kubo is also not doing the same thing.
I need to revisit Kubo.
Me too.
I need to watch that sometime soon.
Yeah, so I don't think it has any technical or historical
Yeah, I
relevance.
think
mean, it's Mitch being gay, I think, is maybe its other.
Sure.
But that in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't really do much.
Yeah, I think Charlie's got to take this one.
Yeah, Charlie.
Oh,
yeah,
we're on first name basis.
We're on a nickname basis
Yeah.
with Citizen Charles Foster Kane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Charles Foster quotations Citizen.
Charlie K, as I know him.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Charlie K. The big K.
The big K.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Okay, so how well is this movie doing what it's trying to do? This one I feel like you could have an argument for.
Yeah, I don't know. Because it's trying to be funny, and it works. And it's also trying to convey... Oh, maybe it is, because it's also trying to convey, like, the weight and what Agatha went through and the emotion of that. And I think that comes through at the end. Mm-hmm. So even though it, kind of stumbles in juggling both a little bit, I think both of those points mostly hit.
Yeah.
Like, it is funny, and it is, emotional, and it's also I imagine the ghost is a little frightening.
Sure.
At the end to some kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think that's
but
fair.
Is it doing?
That's the thing. I think it's doing a good job.
But I
don't
think it's doing. Better
it's not
than
doing a better
Kane.
job than Citizen Kane. I think, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it is like I want to. This is the thing about this show, and like when you said you're like, oh, why did I bring this on here? This is a good point.
Yeah.
Is that some movies are gonna be in conversation with Kane. Some movies like are up to the plate and like, okay, yeah, we can have this out as okay. What is objectively like, this idea of how does it stand up in like the broader terms of like great films, right?
Yeah.
But also something that you and I talk about a lot, and I think we've mentioned it on the podcast before, is none of us started watching movies like that.
No.
Like no person on the planet sat down and was watching Toy Story at the age of 4 and was like, oh yes, the mise en scène of this film. Like, that's not how we started watching movies.
No.
We started watching movies because we liked the movie. They were enjoyable and we didn't really care, right?
Well, and also not every movie is trying to compete with Citizen
Exactly.
Kane.
And that's the thing is like...
I don't think they were making ParaNorman being like, we gotta do this better than...
No, and that's...
Orson Welles.
I think that is just as valid as some film that is trying to like change history.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think it deserves space to talk about it. So I'm
It's
glad...
the point of what is it trying to do? It's not trying to be better. It's just trying to be funny and emotional and kind of spooky for kids. Mm-hmm. And it nails that.
Totally. And
but
that's...
in our show, where we ignore that and say, well, what if it was trying to compete with Citizen Kane? It failed.
Sure. My point being,
Sorry.
no, you're good. My point being that I am genuinely glad you brought it on the podcast because I think movies like this deserve as much space and conversation as the great films.
Good point, Parker.
Yeah.
Thank you for making me feel better about my choice.
Good. I'm glad.
for this movie on the show. I like that. That's a good way of putting it. I don't think it's, obviously it's not doing better.
No, but it's not trying.
But it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Not every movie needs to be better than Citizen Kane.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
There's room for all.
Yeah. Even though the majority of the movies we've seen, we've said are better.
Well,
I think. Yeah. Anyway.
Personal connection, yeah. Emotional connection.
I like this movie.
How does this work for you?
I really like this movie a lot.
Sure.
I will continue to watch it every October.
Yeah.
Or late September.
Nice.
I just think it's really good. I like it. And it makes me cry. And
Good.
it scratches my ghost itch.
Yeah.
My itch for ghost content.
Love that.
And yet, every time we watch a ghost movie, we always go, it's not quite what we're looking for.
It's close.
Yeah. If this were a show called Is This a Good Ghost Movie? Or is this exactly what we want a ghost movie to be?
Yeah.
Listen,
all I'm saying is that some of our rankings of movies that we deemed better than Citizen Kane, the scales would have been shifted dramatically if Citizen Kane was a ghost movie. That's all I'm arguing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Imagine if he was haunting the reporter the whole time.
Whoa.
And he's like, you're not getting my story right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And he said that.
What
if it was the ghost of the sled? The ghost of the sled was haunting both of them. How about that? A floating sled.
It's just one of those TikTok videos you see where I'm so glad this is what's happened, is that there used to be a trend of people taking famous singers and making AI make them sing songs, and I hated it.
Yeah.
And now it's switched to people using that same AI and making inanimate objects
like a
sing
toothbrush.
songs, like a toothbrush. So
oh man,
it's just
we
like
should have AI make a version of the sled.
The sled just like creaking wood.
Yeah. What a beautiful singing voice from Rosebud. My favorite musical artist. Anyway, yeah, emotional connection for you?
I know this was fun. Like, I like this.
Yeah.
It is, for me right now, after like a first watch, it is entirely locked in seasonally.
Sure.
Like, I don't think I would ever turn this on in like February.
Yeah.
You know? But like spooky time, I might toss it on again sometime.
Sure.
In that regard, it probably sits about equal, but maybe a little lower than Kane. Like, I'm not gonna turn Kane on just because I want to, but like, I might revisit it more than I revisit ParaNorman.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right.
Split decision on that one for me.
Yeah.
But according to our criteria, Citizen Kane is better than ParaNorman.
And I would agree.
Objectively?
Again, I don't know. I like this movie and find it more fun to watch, obviously because it's, fun.
Sure.
It's not trying to be fun. Or it is trying to be fun, whereas Citizen Kane is not trying to be fun.
Sure.
But I do think Citizen Kane is better than ParaNorman.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we can get behind that opinion.
We can't get behind that opinion.
Support that opinion.
We can support
bravely.
our own opinion that
so
we decided on.
And saying that our opinion that we collectively decided was, that. Yeah.
Brave boys.
Good for us. Everyone pat us on the back, please.
Congrats, we did it, folks.
All right. Well.
Okay. Well.
That's that.
That's that, everyone.
Hands wiped.
I'm almost positive I know
what next week is.
Do you know? You know for sure. See,
pick.
that's what I thought. I thought it was okay. So next week we're doing my Halloween pick, and we're watching
Alien,
which you have never seen.
I've seen the first 20 minutes.
Okay.
When I was 14, and then I fell asleep.
Sure.
Because it was late.
Because it was a boring movie.
Yeah, because Alien's bad, actually.
Yeah.
No. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch it with some friends.
Yes, we
are. Line up.
For a second, I was like, huh?
What?
But yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
That'll be good. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, everyone go watch Alien again.
Yeah, go watch Alien.
For the first time. Mm-hmm. Great.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, take care.
Bye.